As a real estate investor, I think we're doing good for society because we're actually buying dilapidated buildings, we're renovating them, we're putting good quality dwellings on the market. So yes, they're more expensive, but they're also a better quality. I think that's what we need. We need people to be able to share this side of the story, this side of the coin, because everything that you hear on the news, I find, is always very one-sided, is always describing one side of the picture, but no one really talks about the good things that investors, developers, landlord are doing. And that's kind of what I strive to do on the show. Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here in Quebec. And today I'm very happy to give you an update on some of the project I'm working on and some of the things that have been happening, because I want to help you get to know the market better and I want to give you ideas on how you can do deals in this challenging market. To everyone who's been following us, thank you so much for your continued support, and all for the other ones. Please share this episode with a friend who you feel could benefit from this conversation. It always helps to spread the love and get more people to listen. Before I go any further in the podcast, I just want to let you know my neighbor is renovating some brick. You might be hearing a little bit of noise in the background. There's nothing I can do about it. As much as we try our best at editing, it is the way it is. So, a few things. First of all, I always mention in the podcast that I'm looking for guests and for topics. And I am right now in the process of planning for the rest of the summer. And there's two investors that I had contacted because they've been quite successful. I want to share their story, and they're exactly the type of people I want to have on the show to share their experience so you can learn and benefit from it. And in both cases, they said they didn't want to. And I want to go a little bit more into detail because I'm starting to see this pattern. One of them is successful investor. They have quite a few properties in the Montreal region in the Sud-Ouest, kind of in some ways kind of like us. The gentleman told me, well, these days, like, it's really not a good thing to be a landlord. It's really not a good thing to be a real estate investor. It can attract a lot of backlash, and I'm not sure I want to participate. And we had about a 15-minute conversation, and he explained, it's too bad because I have really good relationship with my tenants. There is some that, I had to renovate the building. I negotiated with them. There is, one that I've offered $20,000 to. He took it. He used it as a down payment. He bought himself a condo. And now every time I see him, he thanks me. And I was asking him to come on the show to share this kind of story. And so he said, I'll let you know. And then about a week later, he's like, oh no, I don't want to participate. I don't want to attract light to my business. I don't want to get exposed, and so on. Another big one, I was reading an article in the Real Estate Exchange News, very good website, by the way, renx.ca. And it's mentioning a developer in the Montreal region who's got a few pieces of land, a few projects, and those are big projects. They're like 150, 250 units type thing. And in the article, they were describing the situation where the city, where they have the land, the plans are ready, their financing is in place, they're just waiting for permits, and it's been ongoing with the city. And so in a moment where you hear of like the housing crisis, when you hear that the bottleneck is actually the city, it kind of makes you wonder. So I reached out to him on LinkedIn and asked, like, hey, I read this article, I think it'd be really important to share this story. And he responded saying, I'm still in negotiation with the city. I don't want to take any risks. I don't want to participate. And there's been a few other ones kind of in this situation this year. And it really got me to think about the situation where, as a real estate investor, I think we're doing good for society because we're actually buying dilapidated buildings, we're renovating them, and we're putting good quality dwellings on the market. So yes, they're more expensive, but they're also a better quality. And that's what we need. And we need people to be able to share this side of the story, this side of the coin, because everything that you hear on the news, I find, is always very one-sided, is always describing one side of the picture, but no one really talks about the good things that investors, developers, landlord are doing. And that's kind of what I strive to do on the show, to inspire people to get into this, because it makes a big difference for them on their financial situation, on their wealth, and on the pleasure they get of knowing that they're providing and they're giving something to society. So I'm looking for guests. I have some other recordings lined up for next week. I'm quite excited by it. It's just that I wanted to share this because I always say on the show, if there are topics you want to hear about, if there's people that you think we should share their story, let me know. And I deeply appreciate that some of you do. Thank you very much for this feedback. I just wanted to share that I find that it's too bad that people that are actually very involved, who are big professionals in that domain, sometimes want to stay away of sharing this, because it's not a good thing right now, and the climate, the economic environment, and the I was going to say the people perspective is really not in support of what we're doing. So this is kind of a call. If anyone has any suggestions, people they think should be on the show, please let me know and reach out. It will be a pleasure to have a chat with them and organize it. Now, today there's so many things that have happened in the last like week or two. Our projects are moving forward. The Laval project, the fourplex in renovation, is in full mode. They started on the gyps, which I'm really happy about, because I found once you close the walls and put the gyps, it actually goes pretty fast, and it feels now like you have a I wouldn't say a finished product, but when you have the walls that are up, it makes a big difference. So the electricity, the plumbing, the doors and windows were already done. The insulation has been finished. We re-insulated absolutely everything, ceiling, walls, everything is going to make a huge difference. So we're quite happy with all that, and we've taken the decision to sell the property. It's a fourplex. It's a bit small for us now. We want to do bigger projects, so we'd like to, as soon as possible, list it, sell it, and redeploy the capital into something else. Because as investors, that's our job, right? Is to allocate capital. So we've gone through quite a few hurdles with that project, and we're really excited to take it now to a completion, so we can list it and sell it. So if anyone's interested in buying it, let us know. We're going to list it. We're going to list it very fairly, because we do recognize that the economic environment is not really helping us, especially with the last rate increase that was announced this week. And we also want to sell fast. We want to sell pretty quickly. We don't want to drag this for months. So we know that to sell fast, you price it low. So that's for Laval. On Wellington, we're still at the city. We're still at permitting. We're going through a CCU right now. It's sometime in June. I should know the date off the top of my head, but right now I don't. And I want to go to the hearing, to the city hall meeting, for the project, in case there's any questions, to defend it. So that's where we're at. And now the big one is in Saint-Jérome. So whew, we had to redo a phase one, because since it was done, we had, as you know, a fire. I've shared that story many times before. There was a fire on the property about 3 weeks before we closed last year. And then we had to do a phase two. With the seller was in charge of paying for the phase two, so I organized it. And anyways, so the results came back. Guess what? Contaminated. So we have some undesirable materials that are most likely the result of the fire, plus some traces of oil, des hydrocarbures. So most likely resulting from a buried tank. So we had to do some other analysis. So for those who aren't very familiar, phase one, an environmental test, is the company is doing research about the likeliness of contamination. So they look at all the maps of contaminated lands. They look at the archives of the heating system. They look at a bunch of documentation, but it's mostly research on the property and on the land, rather than being on the land itself. And then they make a recommendation. Do we recommend a phase 2 if it's necessary, or it's good enough like that? So in our case, they recommended a phase 2. So that's when they actually go on site and they drill. So they bring a big machine and they do carat samples. They go about 3 meters deep, or sometimes more, sometimes a bit less. They take samples in different spots and then they start to analyze them. So they usually do one test per carat, per sample, basically. And then depending on the results, if it's all clean, then that's it. If there is traces of contamination, then they're going to start testing multiple places within the same drill hole to be able to establish the depth. Like, how deep is the contamination? Is it just the top first meter? Is it 3 meters deep? And so on. So that's what we did. So we did secondary tests on the same samples. And now we have to do some extra drilling. We're going to do a few more boreholes to be able to really establish where the contamination is on the land, where is it and where does it stop, and then how deep it is. So then we can calculate volumes of soil, because decontamination is a big fancy word for we go and we excavate and we remove the soil and we basically go and dump it somewhere else, in a place that's specialized for this. And in some cases, the soil actually gets treated. And for what I've seen from previous research, one of the ways is actually to burn it, because when you burn soil, it burns all the organic matter and it burns all the chemicals, especially for these hydrocarbons, so oil traces. And then for other ones, there's other ways. There's other ways with liquid, where you pour a liquid that's got an enzyme and then it eats some of the metals, and it makes it disappear, which is really outstanding how that works. Anyways, so we do have some contamination. So bad news, but at the same time, I kind of knew, and at the same time, we know we have to excavate anyway. So now it's just more a question of working this with the financing and letting the financial institution know, because then it's going to require more testing, it's going to require decontamination, and then another set of testing. So basically, we're going to go in, we're going to excavate, remove all the soil that has been deemed contaminated, and then we're going to retest to show that now it's clean. And obviously, the financial institution, the lender, wants the report that it's been decontaminated properly, following all the rules and guidelines, so that then they can start to issue the funds, because now the property is deemed clean, and we can continue with the build of the excavation, the foundation, the garage, and so on and so forth. So we're still trying to line this up for this fall. It's not an easy process. And the other good news is that this week are the final plans. So we're going to be able to go, the contractor is going to be able to go reach out to the subcontractors. We have about 240, 250 companies that are bidding in about 30 different categories. So it's quite the undertaking, and we're very excited. So still a few more hoops. And the other good news that I'm just going to drop it in there, and I might have talked about it with some of you. We got now another piece of land under contract to do another project in the region, and I will give more details about it in the next episodes. I'm still supposed to have some meetings with the seller. There's still some items to iron out, and I'll be talking about that project in the coming future. So this is it for this week. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. And again, if you have any suggestions, guests, let me know. Otherwise, I have plenty. I have a big list of people that I'm reaching out to. But I always want to hear from you and what you want to hear about, because this podcast has always been to help you get the confidence that you can invest in real estate. And if I can do it, you can do it too. So on this wonderful note, keep researching your market, keep believing in yourself, and have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.